All right, this little unit here is called Modern or Contemporary History, and since 1989. With this particular unit, I'm going to move pretty quick here. I'm not going to have any vocabulary, but I am going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you the why, something that I didn't do with the other units. Why you're learning this. We've got a problem here, especially with petroleum production. We have now consumed over half of the world's reserve of petroleum. We've got to find another energy source, and nobody seems to be concerned about it. Our entire infrastructure is built upon gasoline. It's easy to see when you look right out your front window and see a road there that we need gasoline to get to and fro and here and from. Something like that. Okay, so what this next set of standards is about basically is stability in the Middle East and the conflicts and the problems that we've had over there that revolve around gas. I don't particularly buy that argument, but I thought you might get a kick out of the title there with gas problems. And basically it goes from warming homes, driving engines, to causing global war and then becoming extinct. Not yet. I said becoming. That's a future reference there. And we have some gas problems. So with this, we're going to kind of explore how this has happened, the evolution of gas, and how it come from basically being a nuisance of these oil slicks that were documented since the 1700s. That how farmers and fishermen would talk about these oil slicks. Petroleum is actually a Latin word with petrol and oleum, meaning oil, and petro meaning rock. So it literally means rock oil. So here's the outline of the evolution of how oil was produced. The first thing that they do is they learn when they I guess the first human thing to do here is set it on fire and see what happens. And they noticed that when it was refined, kind of like they were doing alcohol and things like that at the time, that certain parts would separate from the crude oil that came from the ground. So different parts of the oil had different boiling points. I know this isn't a science class. I'm just telling you a little bit about it, okay? So in the 1840s, they did discover kerosene by refining the oil, crude oil from the ground. Kerosene was a great way to replace whale oil or whale fat that was starting to be depleted in the world because the whale population had gone down. So they needed another energy source, just like we're going to need before long. And so in the 1840s, it takes people a long time to switch. It wasn't very profitable at first, so people still wanted to use coal and they still wanted to use whale fat. Whale fat had a few side effects there with it smelling like fish and it's stinking. And so kerosene caught on, it lit homes, and it also heated them. By the 1850s, a product, they were starting to mess around with the combustible engine, and a byproduct of kerosene, which was absolutely worthless, called gasoline and diesel. I mean, it was absolutely worthless. Becomes a little bit more profitable because combustion engines ran very well on gas. And this is during the peak of the Industrial Revolution, where machines are replacing man, mass production, machines that could run. And we're always looking for energy sources. I'm getting there. Just stay tuned. So in the 1890s, the combustion-driven engine is invented, mainly trains. I got a picture I'll show you in just a minute of that's in Greenville that shows how the coal steam-driven engine was replaced. You can see it right there in Greenville. I'll show you in just a second. In the 1900s is when gas hits its stride, baby. Henry Ford mass produces cars, and the demand goes up. And oil production, John D. Rockefeller and Henry Flagler, who I just no kin to you, Kenner. Maybe he is, I don't know. But Henry Flagler, he lived in St. Augustine, Florida. And when I was down in St. Augustine and saw a lot about that gentleman, those two men basically bought up all of the little oil refineries that were around, and they create kind of the first trust there. So with oil production, everything is fine in the 1900s there to the 1920s. When World War I breaks out, though, there's some problems because they use 3 to 4 billion gallons of refined oil. The drilling process wasn't very effective. And so they thought, and the Americans, especially the United States and also other places like Great Britain and France, thought, we got to start securing other means to get to oil. Well, John D. Rockefeller and Henry Flagler and those business tycoons send out people to scout and see where there's more oil reserves. What better place than in 1919 after World War I, and we defeat the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire was humongous. It was Turkey. Look here on this map, the Ottoman Empire. Turkey, Syria. You want me to zoom out? All of this right here. Syria, parts of Iraq and Iran. All of this was the Ottoman Empire. So France, Great Britain, and the United States, who see oil as their driving force, their energy force. So they need to secure that. They look in the Middle East here, and guess what? They've got great stocks of oil fields in the Middle East. All right, so the next thing comes about here. This is the old Ottoman Empire. This is where our problems begin, ladies and gentlemen. It wasn't just like the Taliban or Al-Qaeda or all these terrorist groups just popped up and said, I'm mad at the world, I'm going to tear crap up. It's not, that isn't how it happened. So the Sykes-Picot Agreement is the start of our problems. I think I've got agreement spelled wrong, looks like it. Yeah. So the Ottoman Empire is dismantled. The Sykes-Picot Agreement was to pit countries against one another. They created Kuwait, and it's a little bitty nation at the bottom of Iraq, right here. If you look at Iraq, Kuwait was created in the Picot-Sykes Agreement. Do you think that was created there to make people get along? That was created to cause strife. It was created to cause war because the Ottoman Empire was powerful once upon a time. They wanted it to be divided, and they wanted them to fight each other. That's how you keep your enemy weak. Divide and conquer. Or you can conquer and then divide and they stay weak. Same way that Russia wanted to do Germany and Berlin. Remember, they wanted them to stay divided. This causes a lot of problems in the Middle East. It pits a lot of ethnic groups against one another, a lot of religious groups one another. And the Sykes-Picot Agreement, it wasn't a good deal for the Middle East. Everything's all right. In 1930, a businessman in the United States by the name of Marion. Sorry, I wrote this down somewhere. My notes. Maybe. That was John D. Rockefeller, but they called him Pap. You kidding me? Oh, Marion Joyner. Sorry, Marion Joyner. I don't know where they had. Marion Joyner, he finds a huge oil reserve in 1930 in Tyler, Texas. And the United States said, we've got oil for years and years and years now. World War II breaks out, and we use almost 5 billion gallons of oil. And we were, at that point, a lot of the businessmen like John D. and all those folks had hemmed up a lot of places in the Middle East, but now heavy investing in buying oil fields in the Middle East or exporting oil from the Middle East became a huge deal. Okay, so we needed stability in the Middle East. In 1949, we're going to try to create that stability by creating a new nation called Israel. If you remember in World War II, the Jews were persecuted. And so we felt like this would be a good time, the United States being, to create a nation in the Middle East that we supported. Okay? Israel has not always existed, ladies and gentlemen. In 1949, it was created out of Palestine. Palestine was a Muslim nation. Okay? Muslims and Jews don't particularly see eye to eye on a lot of things. So the United States and Great Britain and France think it would be a good idea, these three again, to take land from the Palestinians and create Israel, a nation for the Jews. What a great idea. Won't that cause a lot of peace in the Middle East to slam a Jewish nation right in the middle of what was a peaceful Muslim nation? I'm not being political here, and I'm not talking about any conspiracy theories. I'm just saying the United States needed stability there, and I understand that. So they created this nation to have a reason and an excuse for if anything was ever to happen, that they could go right in there. Anything at all. And the United States has always taken care of Israel, if you look back. And that's fine. I'm just saying that's the way it is. That's the facts. This is all because of we needed to protect our oil interest over there. Gas problems. 1950 to present, the United States consumes 2/3 of the oil produced in the world. And we are one of the most densely populated nations. So the Persian Gulf War happens in 1990. We'll go through this very quickly. Saddam Hussein, who was the dictator of that country, basically was starting to get along with Iran and the United States in 1989. But all of a sudden, he sees Kuwait as a problem. He'd always been mad about this, and Iraq had always... Because Iraq is actually younger than Kuwait. Iraq was created in 1931, and the Kuwait goes back to the Sykes-Picot Agreement. Okay, so Saddam Hussein said that the Kuwait people were drilling oil on his land. And this being a smaller nation, they just decided to go ahead and invade Kuwait. And Iran said nope. Saudi Arabia said nope. Egypt said no, and they called for the United States, so we came in there. George H.W. Bush, who's George W. Bush's father, they came in there and just lit Iraq up, and they evacuated. There was actually no formal ending to the war, and it's still unresolved. Okay, and with no resolve, this conflict will flare up again in 2003, which is still going on. We're still in Iraq. We're still fighting over there. There's no news media covering that. So again, I don't want to get political, but there it is. We're still fighting a war in Iraq. That's for you to decide and look at if you want to, but ask yourself why we're there. Okay? Just look at my pointer and ask yourself why we're there. Is it altruistic? Is it that we're there? Maybe. You want democracy and a free country, good for you. But why is the United States there? I don't know. That's up to you. So there is the old relic in Greenville. I know you've seen this. It's on the Newport Highway. That's back when they had coal trains, and the coal trains get really, really hot. So they'd have to pull into these water stations, and these towers here would be full of water, and that would cool the engines. All right, so my last question here. I know I took a little bit of your time. So we have consumed over half of the world's oil. Okay, that means that we're on our way down. We will run out of oil. And so it will be up to you all, your generation. I don't know if mine's smart enough. Yours is definitely smart enough to figure out what we're going to do for energy. What will be our next energy source? It's not a joke anymore. We depend on our cars now, or trains, or any kind of form of transportation. So help me out here. If you have any questions, I've got some... I have questions for you on the Canvas page. This is just an introductory on how oil's caused some problems, and there are solutions though. But if you have any questions or whatever, you just let me know, and I will help you out.